What's going on, everybody? It's Devontae back with yet another video. The evolution that I've sort of went through from early 20s to my mid 20s, and while not much has changed and it doesn't feel like that much time has passed, the more I pull back, I see just how far I've come. The first thing that I think changed or evolved from my early 20s to my mid 20s is value is in what things bring, not in the things themselves. For me, I always thought that it was the car, or it would be the job, it would be the position, it would be the thing. But it's not really so much the thing as it is what it brings, what it represents. So for instance, if it's a nice car, it probably signals something to other people. Or maybe the car is a semblance of success in your mind. That car means that you've made it. And what helped me realize that the most was, I think, money and location, moving around to different places. It's never just the thing. It's the thing in your mind that you're convinced it does. Conflict is energy consuming. It's pointless and it's energy consuming. There is a point in which you need to be ready to engage in conflict and handle things, but it is energy consuming. So coming from a place where I came from, like, it's just normalized. You kind of expect conflict. You got to learn how to deal with it. I'm not from the suburbs, put it like that. You kind of get used to it and it's normalized. But when you come to a place where you move to a place where things are more passive aggressive, it taught me that there's different types of conflict. And honestly, I'm going to tell you this. Being hypervigilant in an aggressive and dangerous place is one thing, but you have to completely rewire your brain for passive aggressive environments. And I found that both are just equally as energy consuming, but one is not as direct. So it's taken a lot of adjusting to be in a more corporate world or corporate structure, and things are now passive aggressive. Everything is up to interpretation. I'm used to direct. So it's all energy consuming, and I'd rather not deal with it if I don't have to. I've learned to be more blunt, more direct, and I enjoy small talk a lot less. I think that a good morning, with certain employees, how have you been? Maybe with your team leader, your manager, how have you been, is okay. Too much of trying to joke and find ways to make people chuckle and laugh. There's like try hard level, and then there's like it's natural. Organic conversation, I don't mind. And it's hard for me to differentiate right now with examples, but I think when you're sitting there and you're trying to come up with the next thing to say, leave it alone. There's just nothing to be said. And I'm okay with that now. The awkward silence is not so awkward to me. Trying to keep talking through it, trying to keep saying things is what makes it awkward. And honestly, I'll say this. The more you try to fill the gaps of silence, the more prone you are to say the wrong thing. And a lot of people have figured that out. When there's nothing to be said, say nothing. So small talk is just, I'm more of a decision maker. If I don't know between X or Y, I will just choose. So much time was spent in the analysis paralysis phase in my early 20s that now I'm just like, I'll make a decision and deal with the fallout later. Period. I just execute. I'm either wrong or I'm right. Experience is always going to be a better teacher than analysis. There's an educated, approach you can have to it, and then just completely, off a whim. But for the most part, execution is the only thing that I found that matters, and timing. And then what you take from it. Simple. It's the best teacher. Now, I'll make more calculated risks to build off the last one. I don't just throw myself into things. I've tried a lot of things, from dropshipping to a lot of things. And it's not so much that they were saturated and they couldn't work. It's just that you have to be persistent. You have to be sort of a subject matter expert in whatever you're trying to get into or become one. Like, so I have more of a calculated risk now, especially since I've been dealing in the world of small cap stocks and kind of doing my due diligence, learning about companies. I educate myself a little bit more before I take a step. Learning to see the value in consistency. And what I mean by that is doing something over time. So all before, I was very gung-ho, and if something didn't work out within 2-3 months, I probably was just like, Or maybe I was consistent with something and I had a bad day, and that would really shake me off my core because it will pay off. The problem is you have to zoom out. So like I was saying earlier, you don't really see the years pass from 20 to 26 per se, but when you zoom out, you do see everything you've done for those 6 years, 7 years. That 1% over 100 days adds up to 100%. Very mindful of undertones. So in a social environment, I've always been hyper vigilant coming from where I came from, and I know that can sort of make you a cynic. It can change and warp and almost make you a pessimist about social interactions. What I've also found is that Hanlon's law is often the inverse. What we attribute to ignorance, we've been taught to not attribute it to malice, but ignorance instead. I think that there are a lot more malicious people than they'll admit. What I mean by that is there's an undertone in the way that people communicate with you that you have to discern whether or not that is this thing or that thing. And maybe not act on it, but be aware of it. There are a lot of people who are saying or doing things and they mean something else. And I think there's far more people who mean something else other than what they say than people who say what they mean, if that makes sense. So that could be a cynical point of view. It depends on who you're talking to. You know, people who have not had those interactions are going to say that that doesn't exist. They're going to think that there are more ignorant people than malicious. I think the opposite. I think there are far more malicious people than we are willing to realize, because in today's world, you can just lie. We don't value honesty. We don't value bluntness and directness. We value being disingenuous. Less company and more substance. I don't care too much about having friends per se, but I do care about having people around me who have substance. So going out and doing things, having random pointless conversations, I don't care so much about, but what kind of conversations we have is what matters to me more. So that's a given. I just care about substance more than company. I've never really been the type to like a lot of people around me anyway, but I care even more so about the substance of the conversation that I have. So if I don't think there's any substance there, I can have mindless conversations, but there's a limit. And once I've reached that limit, I tap out. And I'll do it at work all the time. I do it with regular people, and I don't care if they notice it. What I will do when I'm done with the conversation is just stop responding. Less advice and more experience. So this ties into the calculated risk and decision making. But what I found is that I ask less for advice, and I care more about learning via experience. So that's kind of self-explanatory. So if that's something you value, I respect it fully and wholly. All I'm telling you is that I ask for less advice. I don't want advice from people. All I need is actionable steps, some sort of game plan before that, and execution. That's it. Period. And experience will be my teacher. Peace is paramount. I will cut off my left thumb, pinky, and toe for peace. What I mean by that is, like, I'll cut off family members, friends, anybody that I think that they don't have good intentions, or maybe they're just uber negative and I cannot deal with that consistently. I will try to offer, sort of solutions or empathy to the situation, but if every time I come around you, you're either negative or you have what I perceive to be ill intentions, the thing about it is, with hypervigilance, you're not looking for something to go wrong. You notice patterns. You're just better at pattern recognition. So I'm pretty introspective in the fact that I will challenge my own beliefs. I will say, maybe I'm looking at this wrong. But if every time I get around you, or we hang out, or we work together, or we collaborate, I think that the things that you do and say are not exactly what you mean something else about them, I'm not gonna do any more research. There's something there that you're not being genuine about, and I'm not gonna try and do the extra research to find out. Period. Like I said, there's different mixed views on that. I think that people who are genuine, you don't have to do too much questioning about them. That's just what I found to be true from my early 20s to my mid 20s. There's so much more stuff I could say. If you guys wanted to hear like a part 2 or something, let me know things that you've learned from your 20s to your mid 20s, or your teens to your 20s, or maybe even your 30 or 40, whatever the case may be. Let me know something down below. I hope you like this video, and there will be something here for you to watch. Have a good day.